Hi everyone, my name is James Burt, and in this particular video we're going to be looking at creating a responsive design. What we can see here on this particular slide is that we've got three responsive designs that we're going to be looking at creating from a set of content. On the left hand side here we can see a 960 grid design that we're going to be creating. Again, please don't worry so much about colors and other things. I'm using this to highlight the stackable framework that we're working with here. In the middle, we're going to be looking at a framework for a tablet device that will respond between 481 and 768 pixels. And on the far right hand side, we're going to be looking at a smartphone design which will be able to respond between 0 and 480 pixels. This particular design on the right hand side here will also include a clickable show and hide menu. All examples are using pure CSS and HTML. There is no JavaScript being shown. So if we move away our wireframe, so what we can see on this particular screen here is our standard HTML. So there is nothing elaborate with this particular HTML here. We've got a standard wrapper that we're using, we've got a header, we've got a standard set of navigation that you would have seen in my previous videos. We have a section and an aside, and we have a footer. The content that we're going to be highlighting in this particular example is we're going to have an image, in this case the Bond University Arch. We're going to have a YouTube video from Bond University to show that you can respond mashable content, and we've also got a Google map being shown here as a mashable component as well. Again, my students and others have asked me for demonstrable examples showing mashable content for responsive design. In terms of our CSS, again, there is nothing different from what I've seen you in the previous videos. You'll notice that I have reduced the white space here just to make the viewing of each particular rule easier. But again, there's nothing here. This is a standard fixed design layout that I've shown you in the previous videos. If you have any issues with this design, please check out my other video examples. So let's have a look at what this particular video looks like, or this particular website looks like. So it is a standard fixed design. We can see here that it will respond out to a 960 grid, but as we decrease the size here, the actual website itself does not respond. So if we view this on a mobile device, we're going to only see our large scale version, which is going to be scaled to our smaller device screen. So what we want to do is we want to convert this into a responsive design framework. So let's view our responsive design version of this particular site. So I will put a link to these particular files into the YouTube video text underneath the video, and you can grab a copy of this responsive design and also fix layout for your own purposes. So if we load up the responsive design HTML page, we can see that it's exactly the same page except that I have added a label system up here for our 3 lines, and I've also added a checkbox which we will use to determine whether or not that button has actually been pressed. So again, there is no JavaScript being involved here. It is purely using CSS and HTML. The aim will be to show and hide various content to give the illusion that we are creating an interactive experience. If we now go on to the responsive design, we can see here that everything up to line 13 is exactly the same as what we had in our fixed layout design. From line 13 onwards, we have new media queries and responsive elements being shown. This particular first line here, the show navigation, this one is being used to highlight our label text here. So in this case, this will display the 3 bars that is the standard template for highlighting these responsive designs. I'm going to align the text to the right, and I'm going to set that to display none from default, which means we don't want the 3 bars being shown until we actually have a smartphone size page. The second line here is going to make the checkbox that we had as our second new line here, this one here, we're going to make that display none. So we're going to hide the checkbox. I want to make my images responsive, so in this case I'm going to make any images on my page a width of 100%, and they're going to be an auto fit width into the box that they are within, so that will maintain all padding, margins, etc. We're going to have to create responsive iframes. So in this case, we've got Google Maps, and we also have our YouTube videos, which are both embedded using iframe frameworks. So we can see here standard iframes, which come in from your embedding process through YouTube or through Google Maps. Again, this could work with other things such as Twitter and also Instagram. So we have our responsive iframe frameworks here. I've created a class called responsive. We can see how that class is set here. We've got a class responsive for our Google map, and we also have a class responsive for our iframe example. You'll notice that I've put the iframes both into a div tag here, which I'm using to create the responsive framework around. So we're positioning our responsive div tags in a relative position, and the padding here is being used to highlight the aspect ratio on the image itself. You can play around with your different aspect ratios by changing this number here. Again, you want to make it look aesthetically pleasing to your own design. In the responsive iframe, this is where we've got a few interesting little things happening. We want to change the position to absolute, and we want to make the width and the height 100%. And again, I'll show you this in a moment when I show you the design framework. Finally, we've got three media queries. Our first media query is to handle anything that is between 769 pixels and 960 pixels. So in this case here, we want to maintain our original rules. We don't want to update those. We want to actually modify them in our media query here. So we have the wrapper now being converted to a fluid design. So rather than being a fixed design framework as shown here, it is now a fluid design framework being shown in this line here. Basically anywhere you have fixed pixel settings inside your design, we can see that in multiple places here, we want to represent that now with a fluid design using percent-based approaches. So we've got our width at 98% and our padding at 1%. Originally we had it as a 940 grid with 10 pixel padding margins. Our header, we've got a 1%. Our section, again, we're trying to keep a golden ratio here, so we're just looking at creating a golden mean ratio between these particular results, again all equaling up to 100%, including all the padding. And then again we've got some for our footer. So this is going to handle any of our responsive nature between, as I said, 769 pixels and 960 pixels. And again, I'll show you that in a moment. When we deal with our tablet in our portrait mode, we want to start creating our stackable design. So in this particular case, what we want to do is, rather than floating our side and our sections left and right, we then want to actually remove the float on our sections, and we want to set the width to auto. We set it to auto rather than 100% because we want to maintain our padding from the parent class. And finally, when we hit our smartphone version, we're just doing a few little things here. I am changing the font size in the body to be 1EM. 16 pixels default is pretty standard. We want to, in this case, I'm just going to remove and display none the aside. You don't have to do this. I'm just showing it as an example. The standard navigational elements, I'm going to display those as none to begin with, and then when I click on the navigatable checkbox, we will display or undisplay those navigatable elements. So let's have a bit of a look at our responsive design here. So if we preview that in Google, so we can see here that again our fixed design, there's nothing really different here, but as we start to respond, we start to see the elements now responding to our particular size of our framework. So we can see this would be around about 770 pixels, and now we've gone into our smartphone design. Again, everything is stacking one above each other. I've not modified any content. I've purely had a stackable framework by removing the floats and making everything float, the margins move across the screen. As we decrease the screen even further, and once we hit 480 pixels, you'll notice that the aside disappears. Again, you don't have to show that. And you'll notice that my navigation bar has been replaced. Again, very typical. We can see here in Google that we've got exactly the same framework. So as I then click and unclick this particular navigatable element, we can see our various links being displayed. So this is a very typical stackable navigatable design that you can use as a framework for your own design elements. If you have any queries or questions, please let me know in the comments. Thank you very much.